I'm excited to work with all of you today and I'm just gonna close that and yeah and chat with you and talk about some very important stuff today. So as Natasha said, like if you have any questions throughout the workshop, please don't hesitate to stop me um to flag me down because yeah, I'd love to answer those questions. So I guess first things first, let me share my screen. So the first thing you'll see is a bunch of trees, and you should be able to see my slides now. I'm just going to use the chat window over here. Great. Awesome. Yeah. So welcome once again. So today we're going to be talking about a resource that I kind of oversee, which is our wrprevent.ca platform. But we're going to be talking about preventing online sexual exploitation today. So that's going to be the gist of the presentation. So let's get going without further ado. Great. So the first thing that I like to begin with is just a land acknowledgement. It's just I feel like it's super important to just to acknowledge the land that we're meeting on, which is of course Indigenous land. And so actually, I come from Treaty One territory, which is also known as Winnipeg, Manitoba. So it's a bit of a hop, skip, and jump from where you folks are. But I was actually just in Toronto. Recently for in-person meetings, so it was really great to be there as well. But yeah, it's just super important to acknowledge the land that we get to travel and work and play on, because there's been individuals that have just been taking care of this land for so many years before us, and I would just really want to make a positive impact on that as well too. So like the slide says here, it's just really important to connect and make that collective commitment as well for truth and reconciliation. So thanks for just this little kind of pause that I try to do as well too. Okay, so in terms of content, I just want to provide a quick resource. I'm going to have actually like a huge list of resources at the end of the workshop. Um, but yeah, if at any point something becomes a little bit too heavy, please don't hesitate to reach out in the chat. You can always send me a direct message, or you can send Natasha a direct message as well, like we were saying. For support, there's a trafficking hotline as well that you can reach out to. But like I said, I have a ton of resources that are coming along as well. So yeah, if you need support, please don't hesitate to reach out to. Okay, so what are we going to be covering today is what is online sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. We're going to talk about how does it happen, why does it happen, what can we do, what if I'm a victim slash survivor, or if I know a survivor, and then as I mentioned, of course, the resources and help, and then we're going to do an evaluation today too. So yeah, let's get going. So the first thing I would like to know, and please feel free to once again pop that in the chat, but what have you heard? Like, what do you already know about online sexual exploitation and or sex trafficking? So I'll give you just a second to pop in your answers there. Okay, we got not much. Yeah. Which is good. That's a good answer too. So some of the predators when they're young, try to have kids of all ages. Yeah, genders friend them. It happens more than we think in the GTA that it exists. It happens across genders for sure. Online, at least, would have to in the city or areas. Yep, for sure. Yeah, keep feel free to keep putting things in the chat, but yeah, that's a really good kind of range of knowledge as well too. So yeah, so thanks for sharing, everyone. So we're gonna watch a quick video. I just realized I probably didn't click a button, so you won't be able to hear it. So 1 second as I stop sharing and reshare. Share sound, screen 2, and here we go. I'm gonna start this for you.
Hi there. You may have heard of something called sex trafficking. I know, it's been in the news a lot lately, and you're probably thinking it could never happen to you or any of your friends.
Oh, glad I could pause. Sorry.
But the truth is, sex trafficking is already happening across Canada. Young Canadian girls and boys, some the same age as you or even younger, and from all different backgrounds and ethnicities, become victims of trafficking. And most of them have no idea it was even happening until it was too late. My name is Renelle Bruder, and I'm a sex trafficking survivor and an anti-trafficking advocate. So what is sex trafficking? It's when a person, generally a vulnerable underage youth, is lured, tricked, and manipulated into selling their body for sex to make money for somebody else. So how does it happen? It typically starts with luring, where traffickers will look for vulnerable young people to connect with. And this can happen anywhere, like at school, the mall, or even online. It can be something that seems innocent, like sending a message on social media, like, hey, beautiful. If they get a reply, that's the first step in the luring process. They'll try to learn as much as possible about the person and their life. This may not seem like a bad thing, but traffickers will use this information to manipulate the person later on. Next is the grooming. Traffickers will use all the information they gathered to play in the person's emotions and any insecurities they have, like problems with their parents, school, anxiety, or body image issues. Then they may get love bombed, meaning within a really short period of time, the trafficker showers the victim with attention, expensive gifts, trips, even drugs and alcohol to impair their judgment. Next is the manipulation and control. At this point, the victim thinks the trafficker is their boyfriend, girlfriend, or even best friend. But here, they'll really start to push the boundaries and pressure the victim to do things they aren't comfortable with, while slowly isolating them from family and friends. That's what leads to exploitation. This might start with working in a massage parlor or stripping at a club. They'll tell the victim, it's just this once, or think about how much money they'll make. Then it progresses into sex acts. And if the victim tries to say no or leave, the trafficker may threaten them or become violent. Sex trafficking is real, and it's happening right here to young Canadian women and men. So remember how trafficking happens, and talk to a trusted friend or adult if you feel that you or your friends may be in danger. And lastly, if something seems too good to be true, trust your instincts. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so let's unpack
Hi
some
there.
of that. We're gonna do a couple true and falses right now. Um, so true or false, anyone can be a victim of sex trafficking. And you can put your answers in the chat. True, true, true. Okay. So yeah, so while the vast majority is 97% of victims are trafficked are women and girls, folks from all genders can absolutely be trafficked as well. So youth from all backgrounds can be targeted, yet certain communities, such as Black, Indigenous, people of color, 2S, LGBTQ, plus youth and care, newcomers as well, for sure. So absolutely, anyone can be. What age is it okay to talk to my daughter about that? Okay, great. Yeah, really good question. So yeah, I like that we're moving into things too. So why don't we I'm gonna come back to that question because I want to keep going with the thing, but yeah, that's a really good. I think okay, I'll just answer it now. I think there's many steps to this, and so as we move through the presentation, we'll kind of see. But I think at any age we can start talking about uh, things like even like consent, right? Like I'll share a quick story about so my daughter, she's 8.5 months right now, and I know that like when she starts to kind of understand and wants to give hugs and things like that, we're gonna make sure that people have to ask her if she wants to have a hug. and teaching her consent from a very, very young age. Because as we know, like things like consent can lead into, or the lack of consent can lead into very problematic things later on in life as well too. So we really want to make sure that even especially family members have to ask if she wants to have a hug, because it's showing those things that she has consent and body autonomy as well. So yeah, so we'll I'll kind of feed that question in through the rest of the presentation, but that's a really, really good question. Okay, so victims are usually aware of how they're being manipulated and exploited. True or false? Okay, false. Yeah, so this one's false. So traffickers often pose as romantic partners or close friends, making victims unaware of their real intentions until the exploitation has already begun, for sure. Okay, and then we're going to do this one. Traffickers lure their victims only in person. True or false? Awesome. Yeah, thanks for contributing, everyone. Absolutely, it's false. So yeah, use of dating apps, social media is very common among traffickers as well. As the video mentioned, like even just a simple thing like "I love your style," like you look great. It's a way that it's kind of an entry point as well too. I believe this is the last one here. So true or false, traffickers learn as much as they can about their victims and then use that information to create feelings of bond, trust, and to manipulate them. True or false? True. True, 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 true. Awesome. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, um so this is another piece, right? We're kind of going through like the steps of the grooming process. So traffickers will use personal stories as their strategies, such as like I've had a bad relationship with my parents. I'm also bullied at school, and then they try to fill that need based on insecurities. Like we're meant to be together. I'll protect you. I've got the right business for someone as beautiful as you are. So these are those luring um, and grooming pieces that start to begin as well. Okay, and then we're going to talk about this one. So showering victims with attention, displays of affection, and gifts is a common tactic for traffickers. True or false? True, 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 true. Awesome. Yes, this is true. So this is also known as love bombing, right? So things move pretty quickly. There's early commitment demands, grand romantic gestures and gifts. Like the video mentioned, like yeah, lots of gifts for even traveling, parties, but it's really around isolation too, right? Um, Things to kind of look out for is also I like the little quote here. It's just like let's get a tattoo together. Um, Sometimes if there's a tattoo of someone's name, that could be a tactic as well, like the trafficker's name, also known as like branding too. But yeah, um, and then there's also this other quote here: "Your friends or parents don't know understand me the way that I do." Yeah. Okay, and then once they're isolated, traffickers will make requests, demands from the victims, such as working at a strip club or a massage parlor. True or false? Yeah, true. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's kind of like a mini quiz from the video. So yeah, so they take small steps to coerce their victims into sexual acts. They might start with other sex trade activities, like a strip club or massage parlor, saying things like, "We need the money to support us. It'll only be once." But then there's also like things like threats that start at this phase too. Like, "I'll share your pictures if you leave. Yeah, I'll hurt you." Like there's the violence piece as well too. So emotional, physical, psychological abuse plays a role here too. Um, okay, so if I'm moving too quickly, please let me know. But I know we have a lot of stuff to cover in an hour, so I'm kind of going through it. But so where are youth being targeted online? So you see lots of platforms here: Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, Omegle as well. That's something that's kind of popping up as well for us. White Ribbon that we're talking a little bit more about. But yeah, like online is definitely a platform where youth are being targeted, and I think one of the comments earlier was really good. It's just that like it can happen really anywhere, for sure. So uh, yeah, so the grooming process, once again, it's that gaining trust and information. So that's just that initial kind of message online, or like that initial reaching out. There's abuse, targeting the victim, isolation, filling in needs. So I'm going to go into this one, which explains a little bit better once again. So yeah, I love your style. Gaining trust, making that connection, right? Filling a need. We're meant to be together. Let's escape together. I'll protect you. That isolation, um, and then substance use, breaking the law, and then the abuse begins. So we need money to support us. And sometimes it's also like, the things that you did, like break the law. I'll report that, and I'll tell your parents, or I'll tell whatever. So that's when it really gets they're pretty deep into that as well. So what can we look out for? So what are some red flags that we can look out for as parents? Is they'll obviously, like, everyone's different, but these are just so this list isn't like exhaustive. Exhausted, I can't even say that word, but exhausted. Anyways, but this is just a list that we can pull off of. So being defensive and aggressive, um, fear, anxiety, depression, things like that, avoiding eye contact, experiencing mood swings. Um, and I think this is all in comparison to someone's normal, right? Like what they're used to doing, and then if there's a shift in yeah, anxiety, depression, avoiding eye contact, things like that, then we kind of know that something might be going on. Skipping class, withdrawing from friends and activities that they used to be close with, um, being reported as chronically missing, having sexualized content on their online profiles, being secretive or lying about their activities or about new boyfriend or friend group, having money, clothes, hair, nails done, hotel rooms, fake ID that we can't afford or explain. I mentioned this one already, but having a tattoo, especially if it's a boyfriend's name or symbol, using or having drugs and alcohol that they can't afford and explain. Talking about things like Bitcoin, Airbnb, hotel parties, taking rides, like taxis, Ubers, and having different cars picking them up all the time. And then also possessing multiple cell phones and changing the numbers a bunch too. So these are just some red flags that folks can look out for. Um, and it's good that I'll be able to share these slides with you folks as well too, so that you kind of have this list with you as well too. So what stops victims from seeking help? So sometimes there's just like there's a guilt, right? Believing that being exploited is their choice or their fault. Um, might not identify as victims. Fear of law enforcement or authority figures. So like I mentioned to you, like maybe they were forced to do some pretty negative things, and now there's this fear of law enforcement as well. Having that intense manipulation, having lost their networks of supports, and then shame as well too. Okay. This is just really good slide that talks about just like trusting your gut, right? So sex trafficking can look like many things. It can look like a friendship. It can look like a romantic relationship. It's important to know that we can be targeted by a trafficker at any moment, and traffickers don't always look the same. So trusting your gut, if something feels wrong, definitely have a conversation around it for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's go into, so why does it happen? Why does sex trafficking and sexual exploitation even happen? We can talk about like gender stereotypes and gender expectations, right? That even so back to the questions, like when can we talk about this um with our kiddos, is that like even gender roles at a very young age are definitely ingrained in kids, and that they're supposed to be a certain way, right? Like, so girls are supposed to be slim, pretty, quiet, submissive, nice, motherly, while our boys are supposed to be strong, tall, has money, dominant, in control, and powerful. um So if we kind of break down these gender expectations and gender roles, it definitely helps things out. But like I said, it's hard because these things happen at a very, very young age. So prime example too is just that uh my my kiddo, we're signing her up for daycare, and so we met with the daycare people, and uh the lady said that I guess she has a couple boys that she's taking care of right now. So all the toys are trucks and macho things and whatever. And so she told me, she said, "Don't worry, I'll get some more. I'll get girl toys because your daughter's a girl, and so I want her to have." And so I said, "No, like my daughter can play with trucks. Like I don't care, like." But it's just funny how even at like she'll be like a year at that point, and even at a year, like it's like she has to fit into the motherly taking care of a doll role, which isn't the case, right? She can be whatever she wants to be, but those gender expectations are instilled at a very, very young age. That's really what I'm getting at. And sometimes, as the slide says here, is often used by traffickers to manipulate these victims too. So when can we talk about these things? I think at a super young age we can talk about little pieces here and there, and really build up the conversation, for sure. So another piece is systemic racism and colonialism harm marginalized and racialized communities. Um, so yeah, so I mean, we're talking about colonialism, right? Like uh, I talked a little bit in the land acknowledgement of just that um, these lands were taken care of by individuals for many, many years. And if you go into like the roots of different communities and just how different communities kind of um, led their communities, it was very matriarchal, right? And like so women were very much the ones that were kind of uh, doing some work, doing a lot of the work in many communities, and leading these things and being very strong female identifying folk leaders to spirit individuals as well. Were huge in communities, and so with colonialism, like all of that was really kind of taken away, and this patriarchy was really put in, and washed all of that away. And um, so we can go into deeper things like residential schools, and we can go into 60 scoop and all of that, which really leads into um, all of these things that once again traffickers can use to their advantage. But I did want to share a story that I maybe I can share that in the email as well. That's going to go out. But Bridget Perrier, she has a really good story. She's a survivor of sexual trafficking, and she just shares how her experience of within the 60s scoop really led to human trafficking. And so yeah, so it's a really good story. So I'll try to find that and share that with you folks as well too. I think it was just an article that I found, but it's a really good story. It just shows just how like being kind of put into a group home, and then being targeted that way really led to a life of trafficking, and then how difficult it was to get out of that too. So yeah, so that's another reason for sure. Cultural stigma and systemic barriers work against survivors. So there's a lot of stigma and discrimination around trafficking and being a survivor, and that there's a lot of judgment that are placed on people as well too. Which is that like it's your fault that you got into this, and a lot of like negative connotations around that too. So it's just so really just supporting folks and listening and try to help out. So that brings us to a good point in the workshop of just like what can we do as parents, caregivers, and allies to support youth. So what can we do? Build and model healthy and equal relationships, right? So research shows that more than 70% of youth wish that they received more guidance about relationships from their parents, caregivers, and educators, including how to have a mature relationship, how to deal with breakups, and how to avoid getting hurt, and how to begin a relationship. Um, so we have a couple workshops at White Ribbon as well too around relationships. And there's something that I'm going to share with you folks at the end of this workshop as well too. Another resource for you, but yeah, but it's kind of cool that like you can have these conversations also at a really young age. It's just like what are healthy relationships, what are supportive relationships, boundaries, respect, trust, honesty, enjoyment, separate identities, safety, and consent. We'll talk about consent a little bit later too. Um, there's also, I wish I kind of put it into this workshop, but there's this really good image um, of just that. It's an old saying that like if a boy is picking on you, and we're speaking to like a young girl at this point, but it's just like if a boy is picking on you, that means that he likes you. And so we kind of unpack that and talk about how problematic that can be, because it's just like if being disrespectful and intimidating means that he likes you, like what does love actually look like? So it's a really good image around this, and I really like sharing that one too, so I'll try to find that for you as well. But yeah, we need to kind of break away some of these things that we're so used to saying, um because it's not helpful, right? And we can have healthy relationships and friendships at a young age as well too. So that kind of ties in a little bit to challenging unhealthy gender norms. So challenging that sexist talk, pointing out those blind spots or biases, um, opening spaces to learn about the experience of gender-based violence, and be active in the community, in the conversation, right? Um, so learning more about these things and have these conversations, and I do hope that you'll check out the resources that I'm going to share today, because I think that it will spark a lot of conversations as well too. So that kind of ties into learning about online safety. Um, so yeah, like it's definitely good to like love the internet, and there's a lot of good things about the internet. Um, but yeah, if it's not taken seriously, the risk can be really damaging as well, right? So here's a couple little tips on the side that I think are really good for youth, and even for ourselves. Is just like disable geotagging on your phone. So if you don't know what that is, that's especially on Snapchat. There's a geotagging option that shows where you are on a map, and so you can actually put it into ghost mode, so that people can't find out where you are within the Snapchat app. So there's things like that. I think Instagram also made an update recently where when you tag your location, so before, like I could just tag Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it was a very general tag. But then they made an update that actually shows the very specific location where I'm at. So you'd have to go in and turn that off as well, so that it's once again it goes back to the general tagging as well too. So kind of just learning about these things. Because they can be ways to be very harmful in ways too. So yes, strict privacy settings, think before you post, using generic usernames, message chat with people in person, and definitely watch out for overly friendly or complimentary followers comments. And I think this is a good one to remember too. It's just that, like, it's your account, and you can block and delete whoever you want, and you don't have to respond to messages or people too. um, so I think that's a good thing that I try to tell young folks as well too, is that you have that power to block and delete and not message people, because yeah, it's your account and you can do what you want with it. um, so practicing consent. um, I did want to talk about consent as well. It's the presence of yes without coercion. So what that means is that like coercion is manipulating, blackmailing, pressuring someone, persuading someone to do something without by using intimidation, gifts, or violence, intimidating or guilting someone into a sexual act, and then no space to say no. So really, there's a really great little acronym here. That consent is like fries. Consent is freely given, it's reversible, it's informed, it's enthusiastic, it's specific, And often that white ribbon, we add a second S, which is meaning it's also sober. Um, so yeah, so and this is kind of back to that question that I was talking about before too. It's just that these are things that we can teach even young kiddos. Um, uh, Things like consent, right? It says that even a hug, it's freely given. It's reversible. Anyone can say no. They can say, I don't want to do that again. Or just because they consented to a hug last week doesn't mean that they have to consent to a hug this week, right? Um, so yeah, so these are just some really good tips as well too. Okay, so being an ally. So 5 steps to becoming one. So reading. So this is, yeah. So getting engaged with all the great things that are available to you folks. And I'm gonna share a really good resource with you as well a little bit later that I kept mentioning. So there's lots of stuff to check out there. Stop and listening. Um, yeah, like listening is huge, right? It's just that like sometimes it's very easy for us to, in a conversation, that we want to just have the answer or say the next thing, but sometimes just stop and listening and just hearing someone out, we can learn a lot from that too. And it's a hard skill to practice, because like I said, we I think as people, we all have a tendency to want to fix things, but yeah, stopping and listening are very key to being an ally for sure. Ensuring all voices are heard, practicing kindness, and that's for yourself too, right? Like for the person you're listening to, supporting, but also for yourself, practice that kindness, right? Because being an ally isn't easy work, um, and and so making sure that you take care of yourself is very important to the conversation as well too, and be that change agent too. Great. Um, Yeah, I guess I'll read this as well. It's just that like it doesn't necessarily mean you know what it's like to be oppressed. It means that you're taking on the struggle as your own. So talking about empathy, there's a really good video by Brene Brown on empathy. So I'll make a note of that too. Um, I feel like I just have a ton to share with you folks. um, so I can send that away too, because that's a really good video. Just talks about the difference between sympathy and empathy. Uh, yeah, great. Okay. So we did want to talk about this as well. If you know a survivor, if you're a victim or survivor. So for survivors, know that help is available and reach out when it's safe and when it's right to do so. Become familiar with the resources available. So I'm gonna share a big list of resources just in a hot second. So, so yeah, so these will be available to you folks, and definitely believe in yourself and that you deserve support too. And then friends of survivors. So believing survivors and creating awareness, reducing the stigma of reporting and creating a supportive and open communication. Be kind, respectful, compassionate, and understanding. Talk to an adult if they're a young person, and get help for yourself. If someone discloses, help them get help. So I kind of like that one in the sense that like it's I talked a lot about this in my mental health world. That like when supporting someone, it's like you and I, we can do this together. Like I'll call the crisis line with you together. I'll call the support line with you together. You don't have to send someone on their way with a resource or a pamphlet and just say, best of luck. You can sit with that person and call with them and just support them in however they need. So helping them get help is huge too, and providing alternative resources that are culturally specific as well too. So let's go into the resources. Uh, Please feel free to take a screenshot, keep it on your phone, take a picture. These are tons of resources that are available to you folks, and there's lots more that I can share, especially around mental health. But I do want to highlight Kids Help Phone is great. There's lots of ways to connect through Kids Help Phone. So you can call, you can also text, connect to 686868. I used to use this a lot, like in my mental health world. I would do lots of presentations in schools and share this resource with folks across Canada. And yeah, it's really good. And I remember one time I did a workshop, and some of the kiddos were saying like, I don't know if that actually works. And so in the middle of the workshop, I pulled out my phone and I texted connect to 686868. And yeah, 2 to 5 minutes, like there was a counselor that messaged me and said, like, hey, like, how can I support you today? Hope you're doing well. And I said, I'm just doing a workshop right now, and I wanted to show the, young folks that this resource actually works. And they just said, yeah, thanks for sharing our resource with people. So it's a really cool option, and it's available 24/7 too. But there's lots of really great resources available to folks as well too. Okay, I did want to share this one with you folks. So this is what I was talking about at the very beginning. There's a website. It's called whiteribbonprevent.ca. So I'm going to go WR Prevent. Put that in the chat. And this is a really great resource for there's lots of resources for educators, but I think your parents can definitely take part in this as well. So it gives you some tips and some information around sexual exploitation, sex trafficking, but there's also a section on lesson plans, and that dives into information around healthy relationships, setting boundaries, consent, and those are free to use and free to adapt any way that you see fit. So it's really, really great. It's the lesson plans are available in PowerPoint, Google Slides. There's also PDF and Word documents to show people how to use these lesson plans. The main ones are available for grades 9 to 12. There's a handful for secondary. I think there's about 8 for secondary, and then there's one for grades 7 and 8. We are in the midst of, I'm also involved in a project that's scaling up these resources, and we're going to be creating new lesson plans for young folks as well too, more for elementary students, absolutely. And yeah, but all this is free, all of it's available for you folks. And so in terms of just reading up on things and learning a little bit more, I know we only have a short time amount of time today to do this. So so yeah, I do want to share this with you as well too. Okay, and the last couple pieces, I did want to leave some space for questions and the evaluation as well. But I know that today we talked about a lot of things. I threw a lot at you today, so make sure that you take care of yourselves today. So if that can be little to big, right? That can be just like having a conversation with someone that makes you feel good, all the way to if you're really needing support, talking to someone that you trust, calling a support line. But just do the self-care that makes sense to you in the moment. Sometimes we talk about self-care that it has to be this, take a huge bubble bath and light all the candles and do all the stuff. And if that fits for you today, like absolutely go for it and live your best life. But sometimes it's just going for a walk or just saying something kind about yourself. That's huge too. So please make sure that you're taking care of yourselves today, and just know that that we're here to support you too. Okay, so the last little piece is just it would be super helpful if you could fill out this survey for me, because there's it just helps with like stats and reporting and seeing how that seeing how we're doing as well. You have my name, you have my email. So if you need to reach out for anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's all of our social media handles on there as well too. I will share the survey link with you folks so that if you're unable to take do the QR code like with your phone right now. Oh great, yeah, thanks Natasha. Then yeah, you can pop that in the browser as well too. but I did want to leave a handful of minutes just for questions. If you folks had any questions that you want to ask, um, anything that maybe I didn't cover. Like I said, I know that we only had a short amount of time, so I just wanted to make sure that I got through the gist of it, and then provide some space for questions as well too.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Just if people have questions, you could put on your camera and just speak up, or in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Absolutely. Oh, like do you mean in the chat there? You might have to copy paste it if you can't click on the certain monkey link. And so won't let me copy paste it. Okay. So we will share that in the email for sure. Yeah, thank you. Julia, yeah, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi. Excuse me, my voice. I really appreciated your presentation. It was really helpful to hear about what the sort of the grooming process can look like, and how that like just in sort of very tangible ways, and then linking that with how to, as someone you know, as a teacher and as a parent, how I can sort of try to watch out for things. Yeah, as a parent and as someone who works with a lot of young people, it's really, it was really helpful. So I just wanted to share that I really appreciated that. And also, yeah, from more of the, on the parent side of things, really helpful to hear about, you know, reminding my kids about how they can kind of engage online, you know, in good, healthy ways, because it is such a great resource, and that they can sort of become critical thinkers in how they're engaging with people in the real world, and also in the online world. So, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Julia. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm really glad that this resonated, and this this was helpful for sure. So, and just for the educator piece, totally check out that prevent.ca website as well too, because yeah, there's tons of lesson plans for educators for sure. Okay, Jessica, is there a single resource that indicates which apps are the least and most dangerous for teen students to be using? Okay, so so I don't want to give you an answer that I don't know. So I don't know if there's a resource that indicates that. What I will say is that I've been doing focus groups with young folks past couple weeks now. So I've been doing them in English and in French across Canada. And really, so what